the meeting to elect a chairperson until the Deputy Mayor is able to join us. Do I have any nominations?
Yes. I nominate Vicky Buck.
Vicky Buck. Do I have a seconder? Phil, yes. Do I have some other nominations? Yanni. Okay, so one nomination. I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
That's carried. Councillor Buck can take the chair.
Can I put your pen or just leave mine there?
Yeah.
Not for me. Welcome, and I'll declare the meeting open. And we have an apology from Leanne, and we have an apology for lateness from Andrew, and possibly one for Ref.
No,
he's in Wellington dealing with Freedom Camping. Right, okay, and Ref for a wee bit of lateness. Okay, and you know about declarations of interest. Oh, we need a mover and a seconder for the apology. Forgotten. Mike and Sarah. Thanks. Moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those opposed, carried. Right. Public participation, and we'd like to welcome the Kate Shepherd Memorial Trust, who are here, Judith and Kate and Grace. Come on forward. You know you've got 5 minutes, and I'm supposed to be very strict about that, don't you?
We'll do our very best.
Yeah, I won't be that strict. Especially if there's poems involved. Right, we're in your hands. Thank you very much, and a very apt day for you to be here.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity, councillors, to present and speak as Chair of Kate Shepherd Memorial Trust. I'm Judith Sutherland, and the Kate Shepherd Trust was established in 1993 Centennial Suffrage from the surplus funds raised by the fundraising committee of the Kate Shepherd Memorial Wall in Oxford Terrace, and I'm sure you all know where that is. The amount invested then was $58,931.36. The award provides a scholarship for women who are undertaking a special project or postgraduate study for the value of the wider New Zealand community. The Kate Shepherd Trust has had a long association with the City Council, and a representative from the council sits on the trust, and that's currently Councillor Templeton. I've also worked with former Councillor Ali Jones. The original fundraising committee, and you'll note the picture up there, was chaired by the late Councillor Molly Clark, seen in this photo. You'll also see Lady Judith Hay as the patron, and there are other familiar faces. We remember these women and their hard work. They have indeed left us a legacy to uphold. Since September 2017, the Trust Advisory Committee has held fundraising and promotional events. It recognises the need to grow the fund for the future for the annual award of $2,500 to $5,000. The committee plans an event in September to celebrate Suffrage 125 and intends running a 2-tier letter campaign seeking sponsorships and donations. Dame Anne Hercus has been advising in this regard. Now, in keeping with International Women's Day and with the flavour of Suffrage 125, the two poetry winners of the National Council of Women Lois Middlemas Poetry Competition will read their work. They could one day be contenders for the award that bears the name of Kate Shepherd. Here they are with conversations with Kate. Now, first of all, Grace, former Kashmir High, who gained second place, will start.
Shall I stand? Right.
If you know.
Pardon me, miss, if I'm interrupting a task, but if you have a moment of a few things to ask, oh, would you, Miss Kate, share with me your skill, give my sisters your passion and my brothers your will? And excuse me, Kate, for I mean not to mock when I call you a shepherd who has guided our flock. To build a bridge, off the builder gets wet. We thank you for your troubles, Kate, but we haven't crossed yet. The river be wide, Kate, the current is strong. Gift us spirit of righteous to push forward through the wrong. Times are changing now, Kate, since the path has been paved, but they still smash the bricks just as soon as they're laid. With the ballot box open, many doors are still closed. the right to equality, still for many opposed. I know you're not here, Kate, but your legacy stays. Thank you for your passage. I can't count all the ways.
Oh, that's amazing.
Katie Ellis was the first prize winner, and she's still at St Margaret's College. You Can is the title.
You can stand, but you must be silent. You can watch, but you must not complain. You can experience, but you must not learn. You can be affected, but you cannot vote. You can sit and be pretty, but you cannot age. You can watch it or take it away, but you cannot cry for it back. You can wait for a change unless you make it. You can stand up and be counted unless you let them stop you. You can be strong unless you let their voices exceed yours. You can be as loud as you wish so long as your voice can carry and teach. You can have a say in your world so long as you prepare to overcome silence. You can be who you wish to be so long as you ignore those who would take back your freedom. You can be free if you don't expect it to be handed to you. You can be independent if you don't hold on to the expectations of the past. You can be a new woman if you vote. You can. Wait. That change, what became of it? What of difference, what of strength? The battle did not end, it merely began with that paper. I thought you knew, I thought you knew. Bodies piled high, degraded, disrespected on the grounds of biology. Will she have children? Soon? How can she be right either way? He is right, he lacks the limitations, he lacks the risk. She is a risk. Rise, should you, shout, can you, fight, will you? A pretty face does not dismiss, a quick wit, a sly grin, a love of life and knowledge, a purpose. Feminine strength, not flesh, but a mind and a resilience. From here to the red hot end, you can.
Thank you so much, and you'll hear more from the Kate Shepherd Memorial Trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much indeed. That was just a lovely way to start the meeting on Women's Day. Thank you. The next deputation we have is from Barbara Price. It's a deputation by appointment. Welcome, Barbara, on the Christchurch School of Gymnastics. Welcome, make yourself at home.
I'd like to thank the councillors for allowing me this time to speak. I'm speaking to item 13 as a parent of a gymnast because I'm quite passionate about gymnastics and the benefits that it can bring to children with what we call silent disabilities, the dyslexia, dyspraxia, these type of disabilities. I wanted to make sure that the councillors, before voting on item 13, were aware that gymnastics isn't just about a sport for a few people, that what we're asking for at CSG is support for a rebuild of a facility that helps far more than just the people who are going to go on to become competitive gymnasts. So speaking from my son's point of view and speaking as a parent, my son has sensory processing disorder, which means that he has way more connections to a sensory system than what is normal, which means that walking through life on a day-to-day basis is a painful activity for him. In a school ground setting, if you touch him coming out of class, if he's trying to get through the cloakroom, these are the sort of children who lash out because they feel as if they've been whacked or punched by somebody, but in effect they've just had a light touch. So getting through schooling is a difficult situation. As well as that, he has dyspraxia, and dyspraxia affects so many people in our population. And for those that don't know, that's a neurological thing where the connection in the brain between what you've thought and then your physical action is a delay. So like having a speech stutter, but you've got a movement stutter. So for these children in primary school, when they try to do PE, and so much of the PE is now tag games or playing candles or any of those type of things, it's the absolute torture for these kids because they have to try to adjust to another person's movement, and it's hard enough for them to actually get their own movement out without adjusting to what somebody else is doing. So sports that the council quite rightly support, like soccer, rugby, netball, all of the mainstream sports that people wouldn't question, that as ratepayers we support those facilities. Those sports are just not sports that a dyspraxic can play. A dyspraxic would even have trouble trying to manage a bike. So it affects their self-esteem. Used to be called the clumsy child. But my son at 6, it was recommended to us that he go into gymnastics as part of an intensive occupational therapy program that he had been under since he had been a baby. He was under the difficult feeders clinic at Christchurch Hospital from 2. By the time he was 6, he still couldn't eat solid food because the sensory processing, the dyspraxia, affected him to that extent. This is a boy who's gone on to, through gymnastics and through the repetitive nature of the training, has strengthened up his sequencing part in his brain, so that rather being the total disorganised child that's always getting into trouble, which happens to so many of these kids, he has been the head boy at Breen's Intermediate. He's been prefect of Burnside High School 2 years, in year 12, year 13, and he's now at university doing a fine arts degree. All of this because he has 6 days a week trained in gymnastics, which has enabled him to calm his brain and calm his body and be able to live a fulfilled life as other people do. So my plea to you when you consider this is to consider the children who can't play normal sport, but that gymnastics is actually a way for them to be able to have a fulfilling and develop themselves to their full potential. So the new building at CSG already provides school training programs, the PE program for 64 schools, and in 2016 that was nearly 5,000 children. So with what we call the DISs, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, it's really important for early intervention. So at the moment, the energy of parents like myself who volunteer our time is just completely sapped up with trying to get through this process of funding and pushing, for the rebuild of the building. But if we have that building, then we have the space. We haven't got the constant reminders of earthquakes. We haven't got the cracked walls that the kids are looking at. We haven't got the function room, which you see through the windows with the fallen roofs and the remnants of the earthquake. We take those anxieties away from the kids. We give them a facility where we can now start getting our energies back to working with. We have an excellent OT in Christchurch that has been waiting now for 7 years to start working, where we can run programs with schools specifically for the kids with the DISs and use the skills and qualifications of like CSG professional coaches to implement these OT programs, which are just way too expensive for parents to do individually. We can't afford to pay $120 an hour for just one. But if we get smart and say to a school, these 6 kids can come by taxi to the school, and the OT has a specialised program and the gym can implement it. These are real advantages that can go out to our wider community. And people like my son, I know that you don't grow out of it because he had an injury last year and he couldn't train in the gym. He immediately reverted back to being anxious, uptight, the explosiveness of the temper is there. He has been A+ grades. His studio in the second half of the year slipped to C grade because he couldn't cope with being around that noise and the smells and people eating and all those things. Now he's back in the gym 3 days a week, immediately his results at university, first 2 critiques, no issues with work that he has to change, he's happy. So I would just implore you to think outside of just how many people do the sport, but think in terms of those lives that can be changed because they can participate in the sport. So on top of people like Daniel, we've got adults who come for casual classes, we've got teens, we've got dance, we've got hip hop, parkour, cheerleading, CrossFit. The facilities, when you consider whether you would grant this funding, it's not just the gymnastics club. We share these facilities, we allow them to be used by other groups. So groups currently who've used it have been the Crusaders, and I've put in a letter of support from the Crusaders that backs up what I'm saying about the development. We've had pole vaulters training because using the foam pits reduces their injuries. Snowboarders the same. We've had cricketers, the Big Fun Special Needs Group, Kids Fest, Cholmondeley Children's Home, Cancer Society, Autistic Society. CSG facility is not just for a club of just gymnasts. CSG facility is a regional facility that people train to come to do safe training and to use those expertise. I've been involved in doing the lotteries grant applications. So far we've got letters of support from the Crusaders, Shirley Boys High, Nova, Montessori's, Mount Pleasant, Queen's Park, Avonside Girls, Rangi, and we've still got other letters that are coming in. So that, contrary to what you might see on social media of it only being about something very small, it isn't. It's an organisation that reaches out, and that the benefits of developing motor coordination, flexibility, there's just nothing but positive there for our future generations of Christchurch. So I thank you for your time and ask you to consider those points.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Barbara. You've got time for one question. Aaron.
Yeah, Barbara, thank you for your presentation, because it certainly educated me on a huge part of what the CSG do that I didn't know about and didn't understand. My question is more around the Crusaders letter. Great little letterhead there. And they are supporting, and you read out a whole lot of others that are supporting your funding applications with just endorsements, obviously. Have you received one from the council?
No, we haven't.
Right. Okay.
We haven't received a letter of support from the council.
So, Vicky, can we look into that? How we do? I know that she's
Let's do
applying
that
for
after
funding.
today's one.
After today.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. It was a very good presentation. What we'll do, Barbara, is actually go on to that item, so you don't have to sit and wait through all of the audit stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So all of you have got a memo that came to you on the hub on the 7th of March. David, John, do you want to say anything else, or do you just want questions?
No, questions will be fine, thank you.
Are there any questions of David, John? Yanni?
Well, thank you. And thank you for the additional memo. I just note that you've got the centre parade not blacked out, but then the other ones are blacked out. And can you just help me understand why or what the process is around a decision on that building? I think in the memo you referenced waiting for the master plan to be complete.
Yep.
If some of us were keen to look at a funding reduction to the centre parade, because we're funding them for rent at the moment, as a result of this deal that frees up that space, what's the best way to get that today?
So from a process point of view, it's the leaseholder, CSG, Christchurch School of Gymnastics, responsibility to explore whether they're able to sell that building to another user, and then they would come back to council via the community board to sort of say, council happy for this building to be passed on to this new tenant, and is council happy to then issue a new lease to that party, and that would come through from recommendation of the community board straight back to council for consideration.
So at the moment we need to get approval from CSG around any relationship. So have we asked them about the centre parade being a tenant?
So we haven't left CSG alone in this situation, as we wouldn't do in any lease situation that hold public council land, and we've been working actively with them about prospective tenants, as some of the councillors have been involved in discussions, as well as prospective tenants that could potentially be interested in taking on that building, recognising what it would be fit for. And so there's a list of 4 or 5 that have been investigated or actively in discussions now. And so if CSG continue in the momentum they're going to move on to a new site and build in a new site, then we'll be lifting the level of energy and support to help them find someone that may be palatable to council for it then to go through that decision-making process.
I was sorry, I'm probably not being very clear. It's a lot of money that we're being asked to put into the project, and I'm trying to look at a way in which we can reduce. So we're currently paying a grant of X amount to the Centre Parade for rental.
Yeah.
So it seems to me if we agree to put extra money into the School of Gymnastics, we actually get an asset that we could offset some costs that we have, which would make the transaction over the 10 years pretty much cost neutral. And I was just trying to see how we actually get that decided today as part of this deal, rather than leave it for a later process, which would, as it seems in the memo, we're exploring other uses that probably wouldn't save us much money, and we end up having an additional cost that's ongoing as well.
So that would have been my ideal to turn up here today and be able to present a total package. We haven't achieved that yet. So it does require a bunch of work to be completed by the Centre Parade to be happy that they would take on that building, because they would be taking on a liability as opposed to an asset. No building's really an asset, and that they would need to be comfortable in there. So they've been provided all the information from CSG so they can do their due diligence about whether they're happy to take that building on and own it and maintain it and be responsible for the liability. And so we aren't in a position yet. They need to make that decision themselves before the council's in a position to make a decision on the lease.
Okay, so they're basically offered the building and they're doing due diligence?
Yeah.
Have we got a time frame before we know about that?
So I haven't been in contact with them recently, and I'll do so soon.
Pauline?
Yeah, just a quick question on the total funds that were received from the sale of the land. In the memo it says there's 250 already gone from that. Where did that go? Did that go to the master plan?
So that's an amount that has been estimated for the master planning process.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah?
Just in the memo, it's clear here that the community board are supportive, which is great, and they're the ones who know their community best about expectations around the master plan and funding. But it's also clear here that they're quite keen to recoup any money and to get that back again should there be a disposal of the building. But I'm quite keen for us to be able to have that offset other costs like Centre Parade and things. So how are we able to incorporate that into what we're doing today?
So unfortunately I don't believe it is possible to do it today.
Okay.
What was discussed with the community board on Friday was obviously with their aspirations of
Get on with
maintaining
that.
as much as possible for the master plan process.
Yeah.
How we could gain that, and we talked through them with Glenn and David's support to sort of say, well, that would be something that would come through the lease process in the future.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Could I just add, probably in response to your question, Sarah, and yours, Yanni, that the Christchurch School of Gymnastics hold a ground lease from the council on that portion of QE2. Should the council wish to propose any changes to that, there may be some legal or consultative processes that we have to go through. That adds complexity and sort of justifies our answer to you that we're not able to preempt or include these arrangements at this point in time.
But just checking that the community board haven't been given any expectations that money from the disposal or otherwise or leasing would come back to them rather than offsetting costs?
No, totally not.
No.
Yeah. So, another question?
Based on John's answer, can I just get clarified? The School of Gymnastics will still, so we've done a new lease with the new site and we'll give them the funding. As part of that, there's no relinquishing the lease that they've currently got on their existing building. So effectively they can choose to do what they want with that existing building as long as they get approval through us.
So they're required under the terms of the new lease within, I think it's either 6 months or 18 months of moving into the new building, all going well, that they need to demolish that building or have council approval to lease it to a new, sell it to a new party.
I've got a mover for the recommendation. Dave? Glenn? Seconding? Okay. Any debate? Sarah?
Oh, just quickly, I mean, the Christchurch School of Gymnastics do an amazing amount of really good work and provide a fantastic space for a huge range of different community groups throughout the city. And I really want to see that continue. So I'm really happy that we're able to do this today. I'm a little bit concerned about the timing in that the community haven't had a chance to say on the aspirations for the master plan for QE2 prior to us making a decision on some of the funding being used. But the community board are in favour of this, and they're the ones that know their community best, and so completely willing to take the community board's steer on this and the local councillors, and it will be up to them to manage the expectations of the community through that master planning process. So really happy to do this.
Great, thanks. Mover and seconder, and Glenn.
Yeah, thank you. I think when you look at this facility, it's good for both the east and the city. So you may remember that it produced or out of the many people that have come out and done well, Courtney McGregor went to the Olympics. And if you look at the environment in which she and others have had to train, it's not flash. So I think if we can do this, it'll be good for not only the east, but for the city. We've heard already today too that there's a wider community and city good in how it can assist people of all ages and abilities there. This would be in keeping with what the CSG intends to do and the aspirations of the board. Probably not ideal to do it this way, but then if we don't do it like this, we've got to look elsewhere in the LTP, and you know as well as I do how tight things are. So there's a sense in which it's an internal financial swap, if you like, within that fund. So it would be good if you could support it.
Dave?
Thank you. Look, I'd just like to give support to this motion here today. This proposal to relocate the School of Gymnastics has been going on now for probably 2 or 3 years, and to some degree the location, the final location that the School of Gymnastics has landed upon is a consequence of some of our machinations around how things have ended up on QE2, and that final location has actually ended up probably costing them a considerable amount more in ground remediation. Initially we were proposing to locate this facility alongside the new sport and recreation facility there, which may have offered some economies of scale in terms of ground remediation. We've heard today the wide and varied benefit that this group offers to not only the local community but the wider community of Christchurch. I believe it is a very beneficial organisation to the eastern suburbs and to the city as a whole, and I think the presentation we heard earlier really does reinforce the wide range of activities that this group does offer our community. The Crusaders in giving the letter of support probably didn't actually say that at one stage they went there and had a bit of a pre-season training session themselves. So it is wide and varied, and I would ask my fellow councillors that they support this remit. And as Glenn has said, it isn't the most ideal way that we would have liked to have funded this application, but the reality is it was going to be this way or not at all. So thank you for your consideration.
I'll put the motion. Okay, I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Thank you very much indeed. Item number 4 is the presentation of petitions, and I don't have any. 28, the resolution to include supplementary papers. I'll put that. Tim moves, Glenn seconds. I'll put that. Those in favour, please say aye. Those opposed, carried. And then the committee minute reports. I have items 5, 8, 10, 11, 12, which are just minutes from committees. Dion moves. Pauline seconds. I'll put that. Those in favour, please say aye. Those opposed, carried. That brings us to item Do you want to do 6 and 7 or 28? Okay, we'll do 6 and 7. Corporate Finance Report, item number 6 on the agenda. Raph, do you want to talk to it? Nothing to tell? It's all there. Happy to move. Jamie seconds. No discussion. Put that. Those in favour please say aye. Those opposed, carried. Item 7, the financial report for the 6 months to December. Raph moves. Yeah, I'll just get a seconder. Jamie seconds. Yanni, question of die. No? Might be of Carleen.
Carol? No.
Carol? You might be it. Okay, we'll just see. Go for it, Yanni. You might want to come and sit down here, Carol.
This is number 7, isn't it?
Number 7, we're doing?
Yeah, we've had a memo around about it, so are we allowed to ask questions on that memo, or it's not clear?
Which memo?
The one that came from Joe Daly. Response questions from the committee, 31st of January.
Yanni, the memo was in response to questions that were raised at the committee. Given that I don't actually have the members of my staff here, it might be helpful if you did have questions on that we could just deal with those via email afterwards.
It's just like the Capital Endowment Fund, I see there's a number of money being returned to it, but I still don't know what the process is for us to distribute that. So in the past, for example, in the Burwood Pegasus ward, when they had money returned as part of this process, they were able to reallocate it to community projects within their ward. But what's happened here, some of the money that's been returned hasn't gone back to the Hagley Ferrymead board, and I know the names have changed and it's been some time ago, but that hasn't gone back into being able to be distributed into community projects in that area. It's just gone back to the principal.
I just wonder, in relation to the Capital Endowment Fund, because there's been a number of questions on it from a number of councillors, would it be sensible, are you on finance and performance, Yanni?
Yes.
Would it be sensible if you have a report on the Capital Endowment Fund at the next meeting, Raph? Yeah, so we can deal with the whole issue of it then, how it's dealt with, the interest, how you apply to it, all those sorts of things that you've been wanting.
Yeah, I thought we had a process underway to get that report back, but I just don't know.
Well, let's deal with it at the next finance and performance, so you get a full report, and
I think that would be really, really helpful.
Yep. So, Raph, I'll just leave that in your hands. Yep.
Thank you.
So there'll be a report at the next finance and performance. It's probably in Carol's hands, actually. Okay. Anything else, Dion?
Just had a quick question on the the personnel costs on page 21. At the moment, the variation is positive, but the year-end variation is 1.6 million in the red. I mean, do you know what is happening between now and year-end to sort of get such a big difference in terms of just personnel costs?
So there's a lot of work going on with our forecasting at the moment, working with the teams to make sure that all those forecasts are firmed up. I can't comment specifically on that one.
Does the chief executive?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because there's quite a large variance there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Just 3.6 over the rates growth. Is that solely due to, say, an increased number of rating units, or is there a bit more to it than that?
When we set our budgets and forecasts, it's based on what we know at that point in time. So the population does change, and I've got Steve, who's our rates expert, who might be able to give some more background.
I always hesitate when I get introduced like that. But yes, effectively it's a combination of both. So as you know, since the earthquakes, and only until the end of this financial year, we're able to adjust people's rates during the year as they either demolish or they build. So the reason that we have variances in our rates income is that we have, at the beginning of the year, we've got to try and project how much natural growth, net growth there's going to be during the year, the balance between demolitions and new subdivision and new building, and the actual will obviously come in a little different. So it's a mixture. Some of it will be subdivisions, so genuine new land. A lot of it will be new buildings, so therefore new value.
Give us a net residential rates unit growth off the top of your head, even in round figures.
Not off the top of my head, I'm
Okay.
sorry, no, I can't, and I'm not even sure if I could do it residential versus anything else, because we're not very granular in some
Can't really be
data.
split. Okay.
But yeah, we can certainly give you an idea of numbers.
Yeah.
In fact, it's reported in the consultation document.
And
There was some
perhaps a growth rate too would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is also projected to fall away over the next 2 or 3 years. We're having, as you probably know better than I do from other sources, we've had our hump of earthquake recovery, and things are beginning to settle back down to normal growth rates.
Okay. Thanks.
Vicky, just going back, are we making a note, just for the record, that the report would go to the committee for the Capital Endowment Fund, just for the record? She has? Just for the record, thank you.
I think she's just going through it now. I don't know. Yeah.
It's page 45 if anyone's still looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, I take it as read. It's just kind of updating the policy to just make it a little bit clearer.
Do you want to comment on this, Stuart?
No, as Councillor Menji said, it's more or less a refresh of the current protected disclosures policy into the style that we've been using for the internal policies. Although this is fairly much an internal policy, it is a statutorily required policy, which is why it's, and the council has reserved for itself the power to approve the policy, which is why it's come to you. And the other change that you can see in the resolution is changing who protected disclosures are made to within the council. It formerly was the head of legal services, and we've assessed whether that's actually appropriate, given that the legal services unit may need to be advising the council on the wrongdoing that's reported to it under the policy. It's better to have a separate officer and or the CE, who are the people that's reported to.
I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Thank you, and thanks, Judith. We've done item 13, so the next one is item 14, the Metropolitan Discretionary Response Fund on page 81.
I'm happy to move them, the recommendations.
Second.
Yep. Seconded Aaron.
I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah, you can ask a question of someone.
Come to the table now.
Right. Hi, guys. Right. Ref, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, it was just about the grant towards Kingdom, and I think I saw a memo about comparing it to budget services, and whether this should really be a central government funded service around people's specific budgets, or is this something that council always does fund?
This is an MSD funded service, and the bulk of the income does come from MSD. It has been funded by council over time. It has commonly been $40,000 a year. The last grant that went to this organisation had been reduced to $35,000.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that I was a budget services advisor for 6 years,
And it's just another one of these things that I think the MSD should be funding and funding properly, then it kind of falls.
Are we into debate or?
Huh?
No, he's in questions at the moment.
Want,
No, you can debate it later,
No.
but just
Okay,
questions
thanks.
at the moment. Are there any other questions? Jimmy and then Yanni. Nan?
I just want to know what's staff any criteria, distinguish between the priority 1 and priority 2, etc., regarding the grant funding. Because I reviewed the World Christchurch, it looks like they participate for 18,000 people, create good image to the city. They apply for $25,000, but we grant 20,000. So what's the rationale? Why what's the rationale? We cannot fully amount to grant the funding.
It was made a priority 2. I have it as a priority 2. I don't know, I'm sorry, we can't answer that at the moment.
Amendment 25, full amount, yes. 18,000 people come to Christchurch, yes.
The word.
I mean the word. The 25? Yeah, 85.
I guess it's a wee bit following on from what Jimmy said, but I am interested in why the reduction in the money given to Kingdom resources. What it seems to provide an amazing service. It doesn't just support people in debt, but it also trains people. So it's not just, and I know that they're very well established, and I'm just wondering what the general rationale was in reducing that funding.
I think probably we'll start with saying that Jay, who's talking to Kingdom today, didn't actually do the assessment. The person that's left has left. From what I understood, when he did the assessment, he wanted to direct the funding towards the wages for the organisation rather than the rent. So that was why he made the $20,000 recommendation.
Yeah, I was just, thank you for getting the answer to the question about the service that was being reduced. Or my understanding that service is still going, and a bit like the question that Raf raised, but my understanding is central government has actually made funding provision for budget advice services. So I'm just sort of still trying to understand why we would be funding this, given that it's a central government thing that's core funded.
Again, it was my understanding from the staff assessment that was made is that the contribution of council funding was for the overflow of what was already funded from government funding. So this is an additional, the extra people that have come into the service over this time. I think there's been a 22% increase, which wasn't included in the MSD funding. They also have said that there's been an increased need that they've seen with those people, not just for budget advice, but around mental health issues and things like that, which they are trying to direct into other services, but some of this work they still have to manage themselves. So this is for that extra work that they're doing on top that's not being met by the
do we have like a map of like where budget advisory services are in Christchurch and which communities they're working with?
I don't know that we have that, but it's something that we could certainly supply.
I just wonder whether there's a bigger strategic question about budgeting advice and who's delivering it and how if we're going to fund it, like on what grounds we would fund it, rather than our central government.
This came up at the Mayor's Welfare Fund yesterday, didn't it, Ben? And that all of the agencies were reporting a hugely busy January and February, including the Mayor's Welfare Fund, which has spent a huge amount of money and is having to cut back. There are Kingdom Resources Trust, Salvation Army, Methodists, Budget Advice, and there was one other, a City Mission, who all offer budgetary services. Some of them part-time, some of them on an occasional basis, but all of them are getting huge demand. Quite often when they're referred there, there are a lot of issues. So what they were also finding is a lot of people not on benefits coming through. Just, I think, one of the issues that we find with the Mayor's Welfare Fund is that by the time people get to us, they've got $2,500, $3,000 worth of debt, and our usual donation or payment of, not donation, but payment of some bill is around $300 to $500. So there's still issues. I don't think Christchurch is dealing with a whole pile of the issues. In fact, what we've asked is that we've asked Paul Dalziel to come and talk to us about the whole economic shift that's happening here, because you saw it in that housing report that far fewer people now own their own house. So the volatility of renting and the lack of equity in any sort of secure abode makes huge issues for all sorts of families, not just the families that you may think that you would get. So I don't think there is a surplus of budget advice service in the city at the moment. In fact, we know there's not. Yeah, Phil.
So I'm happy to speak to support this strongly. Clearly, you know, the whole purpose of Kingdom...
just before you do...
well, others here.
Oh, okay. I'll put them separately then so we can have Jimmy's amendment. Sorry, Phil, for interrupting.
Okay, happy to agree with Jim.
Phil, just before you do...
I'm happy, since I moved, I'm happy to agree with Jimmy's amendment.
Yep.
Can I just ask that we do get like a report back to the committee or around budget advice services?
Yeah, and what we might also do is invite you to, or invite all councillors to the session that we were looking at on the sort of structural changes that are happening.
Yeah, I think it'd be really useful. So when it comes to the next sector of communities funding round, we can have a consistent approach across all of the budget advice services, rather than just having them come in.
That might be useful from these guys to start with, and then we'll get you some information. Apologies, Phil. So you're happy to accept Jimmy's amendment?
Indeed.
Yep.
So, as I indicated, I strongly support both of these applications and the amendment that Jimmy has asked for. Especially in relation to Kingdom Resources, just want to say that a budget it's more than a budget advisory service per se, and that's clear actually in the matrix here. They partner very strongly with other support services, and it's clear that the people now who are going for budget advice are people who've never been in this position before and are in some serious financial difficulties, and the whole purpose of the budget advice is to stop these people falling into poverty. It's very easy to say that central government should pay for all of it, but I think we as a city have had a tradition of actually supporting budget advice and other social agencies like this, and at a time like this we need to continue. There's a lot of strengths with this, particularly for people who, it's quite clear in the report, also are coping with mental health issues. We have special funds around that, I know, but this agency is playing a key part in this whole area, particularly, as Anne indicated, by training others and by partnering strongly with other agencies. So the Kingdom Resources has a long tradition of providing the service, and yes, of course they get some MSD funding, but this is an outreach which actually covers the whole city. It's much wider than Addington, which is their base, and they do need new premises. They need to be able to afford increasing rents, and I'm strongly supporting this application and also the application for Word.
Thank you. I'm absolutely in favour of these today, and I'd like to point out to councillors that once this is done, we're going to have only $21,000 left in our Metropolitan Discretionary Fund, with still months to go. And to remind everyone that we had a unanimous decision around the table last year to put extra grant funding in our draft annual plan, and then at the last minute we decided not to. That would have given us an extra $750,000 across the city, way less than many other things that we're giving private grants for private individuals and developers. Every time we get these applications, we recognise how many organisations in our city do amazing work with our communities, and how valuable that is, and how many volunteer hours that's extra is able to be got from that funding. The fact that we have decided as a council not to do that after a full unanimous decision is incredibly disappointing, and I really hope that our communities are able to submit a long-term plan and say, actually, that's not good enough, and that we need to be able to support our communities better.
I guess my plea would be let's assist our communities by funding what is hugely proactive. So if we look at the top 5 issues for those coming to Mayor's welfare: electricity, rent arrears, bond rates, and medical. So these are the fundamentals, and people are being are being put in situations where they have to choose what is it going to be this week. You know, food, power, whatever. These are the things that we, you and I, around the table, wouldn't think we need to worry about, I suspect. So we can have a debate all day over whose responsibility it is. We could argue technically, actually it is the government's, but in the meantime, some people still need the skills and a bit of guidance over decision making, and I think this is actually a good investment. Please let's not turn it again into a custody battle between is it central or local government. Let's just get onto it and assist people in the meantime.
Why I amendment particular the word, the event? Because you can see we review their numbers, you know. Back to 4 years ago, 2014, there only 8,000 people. But 2 years ago, they increased to 12,000 people. And this year, there were another 18,000 people. That's amazing. We always emphasize this city, you know, city of opportunity. We welcome the people to come to our city, you know, their idea, their contribution. It's good opportunity for us to create a good kind of good image, uplift the profile of Christchurch. So I don't think so, you know, to increase $5,000 is a lot. And also the 18,000 people in here, consumption, social well-being, you know, this huge benefit to the city. So that's why amendment is one. Thank you.
Jimmy, can I put the motion?
No, I'd like to.
Sorry, Anne.
Is it too late to make another amendment? Are we beyond that point?
If you haven't spoken yet, you can make an amendment.
Oh, well, there you go. I'd like to increase the amount that we give to Kingdom to 230,000 for what they asked for.
That would leave us with only 10,000 left.
Yep,
in our
I know.
First 3 months.
No.
If she's got a seconder.
Who seconded?
All right.
Well, she got a seconder for it.
And moving the amendment, I would accept, say, an increase of 5,000.
Five.
I think what Vicky's saying is 25 might fly.
All right then. Done. Yep. Would you like more?
Only because I feel like I'm being bullied by Phil. He's going to punch me if I say no.
Yeah. I did want to say something further because I actually think that this is more than just giving a handout to people. This is actually training them and giving them skills. And I think that we want that to happen so that people can be empowered not to fall into the traps that we've been talking about. So I think they offer a hugely important thing to our community, and I think we should give them as much as we can.
I think, I'm not comfortable with raising the funding towards this group. We've got other budget advice services in the city that we've heard are struggling who possibly could use our support. And if they come back next week for 20,000 or 25,000, then what are we going to do? So, you know, I think it would be really important to just get an understanding of the services that currently exist, how they're being funded and what their needs are. And I was happy to accept reluctantly a one-off grant for the amount that was suggested, but I'm certainly not in favour of increasing it. There were so many groups that do work in our community supporting people in need that we rejected through our Strengthening Communities Fund because we said that they were getting funding from central government. And now today we're turning around and making a decision for just one of those groups without any understanding of what those other ones may be, and that makes me very uncomfortable. So I don't want to criticise the work that this group do, but there is a lot of good work that happens in our city with people who need help and support, and I just think, you know, having a bit more of a strategic think around how we do that before increasing the funding is a better way to go. We've just heard that one of the groups that was closing down is no longer closing down, so actually this group's demands should be reducing, not increasing. So I don't know why we would increase the funding based on this from the staff recommendation. I think we also just need to be mindful that, and again, it's not a criticism of the group, but there's a lot of religious budgeteering advice services in our city, but there's, I think, only one that does it that's not non-religious. So, you know, I think we do need to think about that and our policies. So we're in debate. So, you know, I think we just need to be about. We need to make sure strategically that we're reaching the people that need the help, and that for some people they may not choose to go to a religious provider. So, you know, it's just, for me, we need to get that strategic piece of work done, and I won't support an increase.
Okay, is there any more debate? Because what I'm intending to do, just so you're aware, is put these two, I'll put them separately so people can vote separately. If the grant of 25,000 to Kingdom Resources is lost, I'll put it back at 20, okay? Just so you know what you're voting on. Yeah? Yes, I'll foreshadow 20 so that we don't run the risk of losing it altogether, because they desperately need it. Yep.
Could I just make a brief point of reply, please?
No, because there might be other there might be other people who want to speak, so you would be closing the debate if you did that. So I've got Dion, Jamie and Tim.
Yeah, I'm actually just had another quick look through the staff reports, and they're actually pretty good. I'm actually comfortable.
Amazing.
There are some that I read and I go, oh gosh, and you've got to dig around and find other stuff. But anyway, taken me off track. Thanks, Vicky. What can I call you? The chair?
You can call me whatever you like. Just get on with the speech.
I'm just signalling that I'm more comfortable staying with the two recommendations from the staff, the $20,000. We do have quite a few more months to go, and there will be other people that will require money from this discretionary response fund. So that's where I'm signalling, and I just want to say that I do know that I have heard of the Kingdom Resources Limited stuff, and this is not anything to do with religion. This is to do with people needing support. Thank you, Dion.
Absolutely. So after Dion was
Jamie.
Jimmy, was it? No, just spoken. Jamie. Sorry, fancy confusing you two.
Regarding to the Metro Discretionary Response Fund amendments, all I'll say on this, and I'll keep it really brief, I'm going to be voting against both amendments, not because I don't disagree with the sentiment. I do. I think they do great work. But the one thing I've learned on my time in council is that the unexpected will occur. You don't know what you don't know. And the other thing that I know is that our staff do a really good job of getting to understand these organisations. We all mean very, have best intentions around this table, but we don't get up close and personal at a grassroots level with these organisations like the staff do. I think there needs to be an element of trust in governance, and I think that they play, a very difficult game trying to allocate the finite resources that we have to some very good organisations. So it's an art, not a science, and I think that we need to back our staff, and based on backing our staff and the good work that they do, also based with the fact that we've got a number of months coming up where the unexpected will almost certainly arise, I'm going to stay with the staff recommendation on this.
Okay, now I'm only going to let you speak once, Anne. No, I'm only going to let anybody speak once. Tim.
Thank you. I actually oddly think there's a connection between these two. I read an article recently of some of the most successful people in the world, and these 8 people said one thing that sets them apart and made them successful was reading, reading, reading. what they all do is for about 80% of the day they read, whether it's in their chosen field of expertise. Some of them felt it's irrelevant what they read, they just read. So I do think that there is a connection between these two, and I will support them both.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, have you spoken? I have a feeling you have. He hasn't? Oh, you haven't. It just felt like you had. Sorry, Aaron, go for it. Sorry, Aaron. Go for it, mate.
I was asked a question by
you,
you,
go for it.
And I
go for
answered.
it. I'm wrong. Speaking. Go for it. You've used up a minute now.
Thank you, Tim, for pointing out where I go wrong. And learn to read. So listening to the debate, I'm no longer happy to be the seconder. Happy to be the seconder now that it's changed, because like Jamie had pointed out, and Sarah, that we've got bugger all money left. And it's nearly 4 months, actually, if you include this month. We're less than halfway through. So I prefer the original staff recommendation. I generally always trust the staff in these reports. They work closely with these groups, and they give us a figure for a reason, because they've done a whole lot of research on how much money they don't have to spend, and also how well they know the organisations and where their other funding's coming from. So I've never had much cause to ever doubt their recommendations. And on this case, I'll go back to the original. So I'll remove my name from being the seconder because it's changed.
Thanks, Aaron. So have we got a seconder for the 25 to both? Glenn? Okay. So can we put the amendments first, and then we'll come to the original ones, okay, by way of foreshadowed further amendments. Okay, so the first one, so it's now, Councillor Clearwater, Councillor Livingston. And so we'll put them both together. Any problem with that?
Which one first?
The 25 for both of them. Are you happy that they both go together? Put them separate? Okay, put them separate. Okay, the 25 towards the word, I'll put that. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Can we just have a show of hands, guys? If you're in favour, put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And is that, what's that going to be? 8 again? Oh no, there's a couple away. And so if you're opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa. Okay, carried by 8 to 7. Is that what you got, Joe? Yes. Right, okay. And the second one, 25 to Kingdom Resources Trust. Can we put the 25k first? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. I think it's lost, but can we have a show of hands? Those in favour, please put up your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that what you get? Is that 7? Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, that one's lost. Can I put now the 20k, which is moved by Sarah and seconded by Aaron, to Kingdom Resources? Can I put that? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Right, okay, thank you. I think we've dealt with that clause. And that takes us to clause 29, the LTP consultation document, which is a supplementary agenda. The LTP team want to come and talk to us about the LTP?
So,
or are we all comfortable with it?
And I'll make a comment.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, we'll stop that.
You just want coffee. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or lack of
for clearing an interest in the need for coffee.
Yeah.
To just make a wee statement about Christchurch NZ. Yeah. Okay. Kathleen.
Thank you. So, as you know, of course, the long-term plan consultation document is the umbrella document that provides the key issues and proposals for the draft LTP. So it's the document that community connect with, but with the detailed information and the additional documents that sit with that. We had a discussion on this earlier in terms of Christchurch NZ and the direction you gave us in terms of including a question around that in the consultation document, which we discussed and you approved earlier in the week. That's gone through an extensive process with our auditors, our legal people, and today is really a technical sign-off of the auditor's opinion on that and the feedback on that. But Christchurch NZ have some concerns about the content, the way it's written, and that it doesn't really fully reflect what the additional funding is for. That it emphasises the major events, but in fact the funding's additional to major events for international education, the film centre, conferences and a range of things that they do. I'm satisfied that the wording as it is reflects what we discussed and the direction that you gave us. And it describes it in a way that's reasonable to understand, but the concern really is that the general public wouldn't understand that it's a wider variety of things, not just for major events. What we could do is continue to work with Christchurch NZ and clarify the information on the website and the other long-term plan documents. And also make sure that we include sort of some more specifics around the particular areas that funding, additional funding would include. It would be difficult to change the actual consultation document as it is because it's been approved by the auditors and approved by the external legal opinion as well. I don't know, Carol, if you want to talk about the actual process. But happy to take any questions.
Right. Did you want to talk before we take questions?
Perhaps I'll just reinforce what Carlene has said. Over the last couple of days, we've worked very closely with our external legal advisors and also with Audit New Zealand and the Office of the Auditor General, and that is the amended consultation document that you see before you today. The auditors have issued we have issued an updated letter of representation, and they've given us an updated audit report. So at this very late stage, with consultation occurring tomorrow, and all of the documents already being printed, it's virtually impossible to make a change.
I'll start with the additional one that just came from that last sentence. Why are we approving something if the documents have already been printed?
That has been driven by the advice from the Office of the Auditor General. They've said that including the question for Christchurch NZ was a change that was significant enough that required us to reapprove the documents.
No, but you're saying that if, from what I gathered, that we couldn't correct the wording that Christchurch NZ would be more comfortable with because the consultation document has already been started to be printed. So my question is, why are we passing any resolutions that adopts an amended consultation document if they're already printing it? So perhaps I can respond to that. So we had the discussion earlier in the week and discussed the wording around that. That was agreed because consultation starts tomorrow. We agreed to print the documents. The main issue in terms of the Auditor General is that because they issue a new letter, I can't remember what it's called, letter of approval, opinion, then the date had to change as well. And so that's what actually you're confirming and approving as well.
We went through that on Tuesday.
Yeah, but it's just since then, I don't think any of us were aware that Christchurch NZ felt that it probably didn't reflect their position, and I think the slight changes that they want to make are more accurate than what we have, and that's what I guess is concerning, is that we might be going out with something that probably isn't reflecting the situation as correctly as what it could be.
Well, the numbers are the same. The detail is not quite.
The detail isn't the same, so it is misleading how we have it currently.
No, the details on that can be in the background documents. All of the consultation document is at quite a high level.
Yeah, it's very high level. Most of it.
Sounds like slightly dubious process then for number 3, though, that if we're adopting the amended consultation document, and that in theory should pass today, but they're already being printed. What does the Auditor General say about that?
So Jamie, I can speak to that. I queried directly with Audit New Zealand yesterday, because the only change that they were making was the date of their audit opinion, and I asked the question quite directly, are you okay for us to start hitting the print button? And the response was yes.
Except if we realise that something isn't as correct as what it should be, and we sit around here and saying,
Well,
can we add that?
well,
And that's what
no,
makes
it's
it
totally correct. There's no one of our.
But it just means that we can't amend the Christchurch NZ.
Well, we haven't
summary.
gone into that level of detail on any other question either.
No.
To be fair, so I've got questions from David, Dion, Anne.
Yeah, look, I was just wondering really whether you're saying that the level of description of the Christchurch NZ application is not quite what they would like in the document, but if we go through and even in the background documents or whatever and make that clearer, does that in any way potentially compromise our position with the auditors, the Auditor General? If we come up with a descriptive that they feel may have needed further consultation, for example, are we opening ourselves to some criticism from the Auditor General?
So as long as we do not change the consultation document, it doesn't matter what additional material we put on the website. And you will recall that earlier in the week, as councillors, you did actually sign off on the wording of this question for the LGP. For the consultation document.
Okay, Dion, then Anne, then Aaron.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit of clarity, because I was under the impression that we weren't going to go to print until we signed off today, because that was what I thought was the last thing that was said at that meeting. If it needed to come to council, you will hold off on print until we signed this today, but everything else could go online. Now, that was what I was strictly under the impression was going to happen.
So we talked, and Andrew unfortunately is not here, but he gave us the permission if we needed to, because you'll recall when we had the discussion earlier in the week, we were waiting for the legal advice. And he gave us the permission if we needed to bring a late paper to you today, which is what you have here. We also did talk about the print process and the timing of the printing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that my impression was that from the last meeting, and I think it was Katie that might have said it, was that if we needed to bring this paper to the council today because we needed to change something from the auditors or whatever, that everything else can happen, but the print would be delayed until we'd made the decision.
And we wouldn't have been able to go out for consultation tomorrow.
Yeah, but you said everything else could go ahead, like all the online stuff and all the other bits could still happen, but it would just mean that the printing stuff would be a day or 2 or 3 late.
And with respect, that is why we asked the auditors the question yesterday of was the only change the date. They confirmed that, and I expressly asked them, could we go ahead with the print with that?
So maybe that should have been fed back to us at that time.
I think that was fed back to us.
I didn't.
That was my understanding of what was said. So, Anne.
Yes, thank you. Just are Christchurch NZ comfortable that the information about them in the consultation document can be addressed in other ways? Because it sounds like the way it's been described is not quite what they're doing. Can that be addressed in other ways, and are they comfortable with that?
I don't think so. I think they'd like it changed. I know they'd like it changed.
Right, I've got Aaron next, then Yanni.
So just around that change, because Christchurch NZ is so new, so fresh, they need everything lined up for them as best as possible. And it's like if you go to sell a property, if you miss out a few good bits, like it doesn't leak and things like that, you might miss out on some sales. So, and this is a sales document, how much would it cost? What's the cost and time implications to change? Which I'm looking at, it's probably 1 page. You wouldn't be redoing the entire document. I would have thought it would be a page.
You would have to do the entire document, and I think the cost of...
Why would you do the entire document?
We're bound.
We're bound.
We have bound the document. So we could...
Oh, it's not that...
This is it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is the document, you know, and as I say, if we start sort of putting cross-outs on it, it sort of loses its credibility, and again, it wouldn't meet the audit requirement. So I think the cost of producing we just asked that because we knew someone would ask the question.
About $4,000.
About $4,000.
And a delay of how many days?
Yeah, this would be the thing that I would need some advice. Would we still be starting the consultation tomorrow?
But would we still have the booklets for tomorrow?
No.
None of them?
We would have them electronically and available at Com. We'd be able to get them to service centres and libraries, and people could have them printed on demand. That would be our backup on that.
And then the booklets would be Monday or Tuesday?
Shortly after, yeah, as soon as we can make it.
Not the end of the world. Okay. So that's our decision's really around $4,000, isn't it?
Is it?
And timing.
And audit and legal views, and
so it would
a lot to consider here.
The $4,000 is the cost of that. The time involved in the re-go of the audit and legal would be considerably higher.
There would be additional costs, please note, if we don't start consultation tomorrow.
Yeah. Yanni?
Sorry, I think I've missed a memo. What are the Christchurch NZ changes that they want? Has that been emailed around or?
No, I understand they've spoken.
Yes. So adding in the words around not just, if you go the questions, is what do you think of the council providing additional funding to Christchurch NZ so that it can bid for major events on behalf of the city, to support new events through sponsorship, and to test the feasibility of new concepts? Within that wording, to add in international education, film centre, conferences, and the other work that relates to.
Right. And so the reason that they've asked us to include that in the question is?
Because it focuses on major events, and that's probably about half of the bid.
Right.
And misses out the film office and international education, which is 60 grand in terms of the bid.
Can I just check that, Brendan, you've got the table, I think it was roughly $1 million out of the 1.4 relates to the major events.
750.
So less than half.
So the cost breakdown for out of the 1.4 for 18-19 in descending order is 750k for major events seed fund, 300,000 for major business events seed fund. So if you put those two together, it's 1,050,000. And film office at 150k, some overhead corporate costs at 140k, international education at 60k. So in the scheme of things, what we need to do on the consultation document is pick up the major themes there. It would be unlikely, and it would be quite different to include that level of detail of that table in the consultation document.
And we haven't done it for anything else.
We haven't done it for anything else.
So we haven't addressed 360,000 of the 1.4 million.
So if we don't make the change for what Christchurch NZ have asked for, the outcome of that is that Christchurch NZ are upset.
Well, I guess it's about whether, in fact, that residents have a good understanding of what it is we're asking them about. That's probably the question.
But I'm trying to understand the consequence of not amending it to what Christchurch NZ want.
So we can put some of that information in the background documents, but the risk is that what submitters see is this bit here and think it's entirely major events.
Right, okay. And can I just ask in terms of the number of copies that we're getting, that we've got printed?
About 2,500.
Right. So just having a wee sticker or something that went over it, is that something that we've considered?
It is something we could do. There's certainly amendments we can make. It's more around the timing of getting back from legal and the audit, around are we going to consult tomorrow if that change is made.
So if we I'm just trying to think of an option. So we had the electronic document which people could get.
It would be fine, there's no issue.
Yeah. We could print out a copy for people that wanted hard copies of the new modified one. And then we've only got...
And we could sticker the rest.
We could sticker the rest.
If need be.
Yeah.
If audit approves.
Place a sticker over the top.
Yeah.
Assuming audit approves and legal approves, and what's the delay with that?
Audit is probably an email of what it would look look like, but legal have been somewhat harder to track down, haven't they, Ian, over the last couple of days with the other changes?
And can I just come back to the point that this has been signed off by legal and our external legal signed off by audit, external legal on that wording, and based on the go-ahead from councillors earlier this week, staff in good faith went ahead with that, expecting that that would be the case. My view is that you should adopt the consultation document as it is. Invariably through a consultation process there are matters that require clarification, and this could be one of them. We can look at amending the underlying information, but I think the critical thing is to adopt it now. From what I hear, the matters other than major events is a smaller part than the major events. And I just think you should adopt it now, and if there are any clarifications required during the process, we deal with them there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions before I put it? Dion.
Okay, it might be a legal question to ask actually. Are we able, if we just approve this and say, look, the documents that have been printed are printed, but could we go through a process that all the online stuff that'll go out there can actually have these additional words?
In the question?
Yes.
No. I couldn't do a printed document that would be different from an electronic question.
You can't.
But you could have information supplementary that would support it, but I couldn't ask it would be...
And so where would that supplementary information lie?
So you could put the supplementary information on the website, make that available at service centres and libraries.
Right.
Can we tease that out a little bit? Because so from what I gather, and I'll park all the fact that that I don't think the process is ideal, but I do accept around the date changes and that we did have a briefing in good faith, except the only thing, and I think the issue that we're finding with councillors is that we've had new information that has come to us within that time frame, which would be absolutely fine if there hadn't been informal assurance that everything would be good. However, I think the moral of the story is don't count your chickens before you hatch, because like I said in the last debate, the unexpected will always arrive, and it's cropped up in this instance, which is problematic. But I think that we still need to find a solution there somehow. You've got, it's essentially the international education and the film office in Christchurch, which are the two things which aren't mentioned in the old wording that probably need to be put in this one. Two options really. One, we can by resolution add a 4 that goes in there, but from everything that we're hearing that's just not realistic because it's already been printed. Okay, so failing that, what we can do, because we're on the same page, we all want the same thing, but we also don't want to ask you or try and pass resolutions that don't mean anything or aren't possible. So the only option really is we can put the preferred wording on the website, so that can be done, and essentially a supplementary paper or an insert or something into the CD. The reason why I say that is that I would imagine, well, maybe I'm the only one here, but I certainly wouldn't think so, that you've got Christchurch NZ that have worked, I guess, in good faith with us. We want to give them all the tools possible and all chance for success, and I feel that it's probably poor form on our part to then, for a variety of reasons, pull the rug out from underneath them and then go to print with something which they're not completely comfortable with. So that's how I feel about it. If other people don't, that's fine. But I would prefer, given that we can't change the consultation document, to have an insert and to inside the consultation document and update the website with the preferred wording. Is there any downside to that?
With more information on it, but you wouldn't be able to change the question.
Could I just point out in the scheme of things, well, we've got about 1.7 billion of capital spend, about 500 million of OPEX. We're talking about 60,000 extra for international education and a film office of 150k. They're not. We haven't consulted to that level of nth degree on any other thing. I mean, I know it must be annoying that the wording is not as you would want it, but I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference in terms of people's A, willingness to put extra money into things, and B, what it goes for. So people are going to see the consultation document, they're going to get the general impression of what we're trying to do, which is basically to to do major capital repairs when we're $4 billion down the hole in terms of it. So this is a very small issue in the scheme of things. I would like to get the consultation document out there and get people's input, because it won't all be about
Christchurch NZ is essentially a start-up though, so and we want to, I think, have a good relationship right from the out. When did they see the wording? When did they see the wording that we've got in here?
So I think yesterday, last night, and this was raised with us about midday today, or 11:30.
So what was the point of them seeing the wording then if it had already gone to print? That's a really good way for us to have a great relationship with them.
Well, okay, I can't answer that one. So let's just focus on what we've got. Have we got any more questions in relation to this? Because it's either get this out today or not, and go through another process with audit and legal. Anne?
I'm just wondering if the $4,000 we save and not having to alter the CD document could go to Christchurch NZ to do some work around promoting the film, their film.
No, because it's additional expenditure.
International education, maybe as an act of goodwill. Christchurch NZ is fledgling, and we want it to be strong, and we want it to grow. I don't know, maybe we could think a bit creatively about this.
I think we're very happy to think creatively about Christchurch NZ, but the consultation document process is not one that allows for creative thinking, as we've noticed with audit and legal advice. So it's either, I mean, you had a briefing on this on Tuesday, it's either adopt this now or do something different. Do I have anybody who's willing to move the recommendation that's in front of us?
Well, can we put a note that it's amended on the website or something that we can better reflect? I think it's a goodwill gesture with Christchurch NZ.
So you want to add additional information on the website? Yeah, we can't
change the consultation document, I get that, but right. I wonder if at the very least we could
provide some supplementary information on the website.
Some additional information on the website for Christchurch NZ to better reflect.
That talks about the Film Office and the international education.
Just by way of note.
No, I don't think
Di wants us to be changing the consultation document.
And we won't go up tomorrow if we start.
This is, yeah, Di sweated blood over that baby. I don't think you want to stick it.
So this won't delay anything, but
So are we okay with that additional note, that additional will be added to the website? Is there any legal problem with that or audit problem?
No, I don't have a problem if we're going to put some additional clarification on the website.
Additional clarifying information or something relating to the funding of Christchurch NZ be available on the Christchurch
website. I wonder if it's worth just not limiting it to the website. So obviously we can't amend a printed document, but
associated documents.
And associated documents.
Right.
So it could be material on a library or an insert or whatever, but it gives it scope to.
Good. Okay, Ref, do you want to move this? Okay, sorry, I just want to second it before we get into debate. You're seconding? Okay. Mike, is there any debate? Mike seconded. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm not overly happy with this, to be honest, and just the way we're going about it, because we've got a situation where we have a partner organisation who we're building a good relationship with. We've entrusted them to do some really special stuff for the city, and they've obviously been shown the document in advance because they're a partner. They're not happy, and like Jamie raised, why even show them? We would have been better to just go out and ambush them. But it's a case of I think we have an opportunity to put this right. It would cost us a few $1,000s, and we could put it right. But it may seem that the council, so if we all vote against it, then we'd have to change it and put it right and then vote for it, and that's where I would sit. So I would like everyone to consider, do we put this right today? And yes, it will delay a little bit, and we might get a rap over the knuckles from Ian, but it won't be the last time that'll happen to me while I'm here. So yeah, please consider that if anyone else is debating whether we can put it right, and if we do spend that little bit of money, because I don't want them to be on a back foot so early on in their life.
think it's a sensible way of moving forward, but I just wanted to put out that I think it's a little bit disappointing that it's gone to print already, because I was, as I said before, under the impression that it wasn't going to go to print if we had to make a vote today, because what happened if we didn't vote for this? And so I think we've kind of laid the chicken before the egg was born, or something like that, because you know, if we didn't vote for this, then the whole consultation document would have to be changed again anyway. So I think it was a bit silly that we've gone out and printed it before actually it was all fully signed off.
Yeah, I must admit, I agree with Dion. I was under the same impression. However, here we are, and I think it is important to get it out. And with all due respect, Aaron, we don't really know the full costs of actually delaying it and reprinting it. Those were just the top level costs, is all the stuff underneath, and the auditor and things like that. So look, you know, it's not what any of us would want today particularly, but I think it's really important that we honour our timelines and get this out to people so they can get on with reading it and feeding back to us what they think. And you know, I think the amendment, the extra note there is helpful, that we will have the information there for people, plus we can actually talk to them about it. So I will support it today.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sarah?
I'm just going to take full advantage, since Vicky held up the booklet and said there was lots we could comment on. And so I just want to say...
And you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah. So I just want to say community funding, just saying. Since we're making alterations, clearly can't make it now, auditor, staff, but, you know, community funding. Just want to say, cycleways, pushed out, all of that kind of thing, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, that's it. It also asks about what we can do about water bottling plants. It also asks about would people prefer a fuel tax, so that they could have a lesser rise in rates given what they're looking forward to. And I think also, just to say to the staff, I know this has been an amazing labour. It actually looks lovely. apart from the content and the rates increase. It's a really lovely looking book. And for Tim, who wants us all to read thousands 80% of our time, that feels like you'd want to read it. So thank you for all the hard work on it. Can I put the recommendation? Okay, those in favour please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Do you want it recorded, Aaron? Yep, Aaron?
And Dion.
Dion. Okay, Aaron and Dion opposed, one from recording. Okay, I'll declare that carried. Is that the end?
Well, the public.
Where's Andrew got to?
He's sitting in the back. Go into payments, and could we do maybe some payments items, and then I've got 2 available at 3 o'clock. So if we could keep going to 3.
Okay.
Apparently we'll get new photo taken for Race Relations Day. I'll spend it the hard way.
Okay, so I'm going to move that we go into PX and ask that Darren Burden remain. And then Jo tells us that she's got a cup of tea ready outside at 3. So are you okay to keep going till 3? You can last that long? And then apparently you're having your photograph taken at 3:30 for Race Relations Day, if we're not finished. That's Jimmy's idea, is it? Yep. Right. 3:30, the cameraman's here. So, okay. So you have a chance to go and put your makeup on, Aaron. Right, so we're now in PX. Yeah. It's carried.
Can we just check if we've stopped?